William Branham claimed not to believe this at the time, but he told this to us. He said, the first time I ever met anyone in my life after I'd been converted, I met Brother George d'Arc and them down there. That's Roy Davis's church.
Right.
And I was walked in, and the Lord led me to that little place, and they was discussing where the colored man came from, and they were saying that the colored man, that Cain married an animal like an ape, and there came forth the colored race. You know, Branham told us personally that they were teaching white supremacist Christian identity themes at Roy Davis's church when he was there. Right? And so we have there is a multitude of witnesses on every level that William Branham was in a white supremacist, Klan-affiliated church teaching terrible racist things from his early ministry.
Yeah. And you know, when William Branham rebranded the Christian identity doctrine of Wesley Swift and started calling it one of these divine truths, he whitewashed it. He tried to say that it wasn't about race, but when he introduced that doctrine, he also introduced this hybriding doctrine. And it's the combination of the two that paints the full picture. You've got the idea that the serpent mated with Eve in the Garden of Eden and produced this evil bloodline, and he starts talking about this bloodline in that doctrine. Then in this other doctrine, this hybriding doctrine, he starts talking about how if a black person breeds with a white person, the offspring is hereditarily evil, for up to 10 generations cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. It's that bad of an evil. So he's telling you basically that the serpent created this evil bloodline in this doctrine, and that basically that bloodline is evil, and they're black. And if you combine the two, he's literally talking about it. Now, that was the public face. We also have audio from the private face where there are leaders in William Branham's sect who openly taught the full and complete both doctrines combined, where it was not so difficult to see.
You know, I hope we can do a full version on the serpent seed at some point, but suffice to say, you're exactly right. For the most part, when Christian identity theology was taught publicly in message churches, they left out the word black and Jew.
Right.
But they taught everything else the same. And it didn't take much for the people sitting there to understand what they were saying. And if you were unreceptive, if you didn't get it, the preachers would fill you in. John, I think again, let me go into personal things. So after I became assistant pastor at our Jeffersonville Message Church, at a certain point, our pastor, sets me down, John. This is hard for me to talk about. I'm sorry if I get a little emotional. You forgive me. But, as I found this stuff out, and I actually had went and asked the pastor a little bit about this stuff, and he sat me down one day and he told me, John, that black people were the serpent seed, that interracial marriage is why God sent the flood. He told me that interracial marriage could only produce serpent seed. He flat out told me Christian identity theology to my face, and he told me that's the secret. We can't tell it to everybody because not everybody can receive it. And then he told me that we had learned these things directly passed down to us from William Branham. This man was alive, attended the tabernacle with William Branham when he was alive, John. And we have these secret recordings on tape. Part of it, I know, a little bit has been shared here recently through your website, but we haven't even shared some of the most terrible part of it all. I don't think we actually put out.
We're seeing a great breaking of the colored people today from the old spiritual spirit back 100 years ago that they used to have. And now, brothers and sisters, they're taking on this modernistic spirit. Because I can see rising in the colored people today that same spirit of Nimrod. Not too long ago, a certain magazine published and showed pictures of different antiques and things that belong to the colored kingdom of ancient times, and that had to be Nimrod's hour. It lets me know as the Antichrist spirit moves in to try to unify everybody into one great brotherhood, you can't, brothers and sisters, put all races in the same bed. God didn't put all races in the same bed when Jesus Christ came. But I'll tell you one thing, the love of God in your heart can respect each race in his proper respective calling. The sad part of it is we have too many races today trying to outlive beyond what really their race is to be in the great universal earthly sphere of God's plan for the earth.
My goodness, John, I'm sorry I get a little emotional. It's very hard for me to recall these things because, my goodness, I just, it's so awful, John. I didn't know until they told me, and then you're sick. You're just sick about it.
Yeah, well, we didn't know, and that matches some testimony that I have that I also have never shared because it's not something that I can prove and document. But in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, my grandfather also, whenever a woman was, we have a lot of people from Africa, who came to the tabernacle, and whenever a white woman would start to fall in love with one of these people from Africa, I remember my grandfather privately telling me that if they were to mate and they were to produce an offspring, that offspring would be hereditarily evil. And you couldn't trust it. I mean, basically, he was saying everything bad that you can say about this person, but not only that, their soul was damned to hell because of the color of their skin. That's something that my grandfather said. And, at the time, I thought, well, I was indoctrinated in this religion. I did not even know this was racist to think this way. I believed it. I accepted it. And I too, whenever I would see these kind of things happen, I would be harshly against it because that's what my grandfather said that William Branham said. Yeah. So this is not just coming from your side of the sect. This was a very open doctrine by William Branham.
I know. And the thing is it... it's okay to believe a fairy tale, but Cinderella never killed anybody, the fairy tales of, the Brothers Grimm never killed anybody or never hurt anybody. I'll maybe say it that way. But these things have resulted in great harm, John. And in the church I came from, there was racially targeted discipline as a result of these beliefs that were carried out. And it's, at some point, we'll talk about these things maybe in a full episode, but these beliefs that came from this man, Roy Davis, the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan,